Okay, so for everybody who's tuning in and doesn't know this other gentleman on the other side of the screen, this is Rich Lennon. And he was actually like a little unknown surprise star of our show the other day at the mastermind. And I know you don't like that, but like he lent us our microphone and then we were like, hey, do you want to be on a panel? Because we know you have a lot to offer that is very different from what we had planned. And so we got feedback and everybody's like, who was that guy again? And so I'm really excited to talk to you and get kind of what you do and what you're about and what you have coming up kind of out there to the masses. So
you are far too kind.
So Rich, you are a real estate investor. You are a hard money lender. You run a successful mastermind. So tell us a little bit about you. Like, what is your history? Where'd you come from? Where'd you start?
Sure. I started real estate investing like 10 years ago, 11 years ago. I'd have to count. And I started off, I was going to buy one house a year, and then I was going to buy two a year, then one a quarter, then one a month. And as I grew, eventually I was buying 4 or 5 homes a month. And so I was flipping those homes and I was keeping them as rentals. And I did that for a long time. I would probably still be doing it if COVID hadn't come along. Like a lot of people in the world, I just kind of pivoted. And so I stopped buying homes and I've transitioned to a hard money lender. It's fair to say I probably flipped a couple hundred homes in the Richmond area and I own a lot of rentals. So
that's amazing. Yeah. So you're in it with the investment side of things. You have some experience there.
That's fair.
So when you, in COVID, when you kind of shifted everything, you went into more hard money lending for investors. Yep. What is the name of that? So if people want to look that, is it just Rich Lennon or?
It's just Rich Lennon. I mean, I do have a website. It's lendingtorva.com, but most people just look me up and, I'm very one-on-one, very personable. That's normally how I operate my business. So,
okay. So you said something in the panel that I thought was really good to hear and I had somebody come up to me after the panel and say, I'm so glad I heard that because they're working with an investor right now who has a flip that is not selling at the current moment in Church Hill because all the other flips hit the market at the same time. They like all finished at the same time and they're all competing against each other now. But this investor had hard money and they're paying, on this loan. And so tell us a little bit about, I know you're very data driven. You follow the market very closely. What was you said something about like 6 months and right now you're kind of looking at, well, it might be longer than 6 months. So tell me kind of your thoughts on that and the data, what you're seeing in the market.
Yeah. So I think, and I'm a real estate investor, and that means I've been punched in the face a lot. And so I just learned to duck. And so I do think that there is going to be a significant pullback in the market. My guess would be 20% in the next 2 years. I think that's a healthy thing. I think it's a positive thing. And I'd actually like to see it go down as much as 30%, but I just don't think that the world will allow that to happen. Mm-hmm. And so, I make my notes and I'm a hard money lender and we lend on a 6-month period. So I spend a lot of my time really looking at, hey, what's going to happen within 6 months? And then, I think you really lose after that. You don't really know at 9 months and 12 months, maybe you have an idea. Mm-hmm. So we're a very predictable market in that regard. And so I think that I just wanted to tell the agents at the meeting that although there's some talk about the down real estate, that my experience of my portfolio is that just to hold the line. And that it used to be that I would get my money back in 6 months. That's kind of extended to 7 or 8 months with a lot of my borrowers. Mm-hmm. And the houses are staying on the market longer, but they are selling. And so I've learned to like, hey, don't pull the plug and just drop it yet, that the market is still strong enough. I do anticipate that in the spring, even that we'll have a reasonable market. There's no reason to panic immediately. I think we'll be okay. And that, don't panic early, hold the line. You don't have to just drop the house yet.
Yeah. And that's really good for us to hear from someone like you, who's lending and your money's on the line. Like you're looking, obviously you're looking at it and you're like, okay, is this worth lending to or not? And so you do that as a hard money lender, right? You go in and do your whole analysis before you give that money out to make sure that the area and what they're building and all of that stuff is going to, make sure you get your money back.
Yeah, there's nothing like it being your own money. And it's my money. I lend it. Yeah, you need to be dialed in on that. But I'm very comfortable in the Richmond market. It's a great market, and there's going to be great things happening here for a long time.
That's great. It's good to hear. So you talked about a strategy that you suggested for investors or somebody looking to invest. Tell us a little bit about the strategy of the notes from previous.
Yeah, I'm always telling people that I think the market is going to fall, and that gives panic to everybody. And so I just want to remind people that within that pullback will be opportunity for real estate agents, real estate investors, and even home buyers. Mm-hmm. And the strategies will pivot. And so I just talked about the idea of the note and the value of the note. And so when the pandemic hit, right, it changed a lot of lives. It changed the way the government does business. And one of the things they did is they were buying all the mortgage-backed securities, and that drove the mortgage rate down to like 2.5%. Mm-hmm. I don't know about you, Jenny, but you and I don't think in my lifetime I'll ever see that number again, right? And so one of our strategies as investors, and I think there's some opportunity as agents for the buyers and sellers, is the note versus the real estate, mm-hmm. right? So what you're looking for a house that was bought, after March of 2021, mm-hmm. and then all the way to November of 2022, the interest rate started coming back up. Mm-hmm. But for like 18 months, and you were there, how hot that market was. Yep. There was a lot of transactions and a lot of volumes, but all those notes were created at 2.5%.
Right.
Like right now, a 30-year fixed rate is 6.5%, kind of depending on your credit, right? So there's tremendous value in keeping the note versus just keeping the real estate. And so for an agent, where now people can't afford the payments of the house and they're trying to keep the value of the home, the payment, if you can get your client to assume the note, or you can get your client a buying the note, can they assume the note, which will significantly decrease the amount of money they pay over time. And if you're the seller, can you sell with the note in place so that you get more value from the home? Because it's not just the value of the real estate now, it's also the value of the note.
Right. Right.
And so we were translating that to what does it mean for an investor? So as an agent, there's a client relationship part of that. But I was trying to encourage the agents in the room to see the opportunity for themselves of they're the first ones on the line. They're the first ones who walk into the home. And as we see rates come back, people will go closer and closer to underwater, similar to we saw in 2008, 2009. Mm-hmm. And so the opportunity will be there to assume the notes, or to, as you're an investor, maybe take them subject to, personally. Mm-hmm. And I've done over 100 burrs in the Richmond market. And I can tell you over time that you earn about $600 a month on each one of your homes if you're buying correct. $300 in cash flow, $300 in amortization pay down. So, but when you assume the note, it wildly changes that formula, because you get the note at a pre-inflation number, mm-hmm. and then you get a rental rate that's a post-inflation number, right? So where the BRRRR averaged $600 a month return in the portfolio, I call it the BARK, all right? The buy, assume, rent, and keep it for life. You're going to keep that note for the rest of your life. And you're going to keep that note because it's 2.5%, but that gets you almost $1,200 in profit a month. So it's double the effectiveness of the BRRRR. And so
because you're using current inflated, crazy market rents, but then the lower note, and so the payments are much lower. And so that
yes, exactly. And then oftentimes for the investor, it goes from what would normally be a 20-year amortization schedule that we normally buy on, then it becomes a 30-year amortization. So the cash flow becomes even greater. So It's just this weird thing that happened. And I think that real estate agents will have that opportunity over the next year or two to take advantage of it.
Yeah, that's so smart. And I think that was one of the key things that people were like, say that again, tell me what you're talking about. But I guess, one of the things that you did talk about was, if you're going to do this method, A of all, you need to learn about assumption. You need to learn about who and how that happens and what that looks like. I think there could be a whole education to real estate agents about that, include some lenders in, because there are some assumable loans, there are some that are not assumable. And how does that look for the seller? You know, how, like, I don't know that I know I haven't wrapped my head around what is the benefit, you know, to the seller if somebody assumes, well, you get somebody to buy your house. But I think there's so much education that needs to happen around assumption. And I think that definitely could be something that realtors would definitely need.
I think it adds, just like the granite countertop adds value to the home.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just suggesting that the same thing will happen with the note, and the note itself will add value. So if you want to sell your home for $300,000, but the market drops and now your market value is only $280,000, the value of the note can still get you the $300,000, right? Because the note still makes it cheaper for the end buyer, and it's a true win-win.
Right. That is. And you just have to show them that. Like, once you can prove it to them, then it makes sense.
Yep.
So just to kind of wrap up, you got your hands in a lot of things, which is very inspiring to me. So you have a mastermind group on Facebook called the Richmond Ring, RING.
Yep.
Mastermind.
Yep, that is correct.
What does RING stand for?
RING stands for Real Estate Investing Network Group.
Nice. And I've been looking at your group, and you deliver I'm amazed by your mind, because some of the things that you post, I'm like, that was so good. You posted something the other day about, if you have a VA managing your properties, here's what to train them to say if the heat goes out. I'm like, so smart, so valuable. It's just simple things like that, but there's so much good content in this group. So I do want to just plug your group, because real estate agents can get a lot out of it. And we obviously are in the network of investors, our investors ourselves, and can learn a lot from that. But tell us about what you've got coming up in January.
So in January, I'm taking my first stab at a big seminar. And so that seminar is about it's real estate investing, and now I branded it, and I already forgot the branding of it. So that's how
I wrote it down. Mastering the art of real estate investing. We'll get this down.
It's amazing the things that I remember and the things I don't. And so it's about a couple things. So I think that being a real estate investor, you have to understand the techniques, and you have to understand some of the things that are going on. You have to be aware of. I do a lot of self-directed IRA. I don't like to pay the government. I believe in building your wealth in the tax-free entities that the government provides for us. And so we teach that education. We teach you what it is, teach you how to do it. I'm also a father, and I've got 3 kids, and I think about, as I build wealth, and how do I do that? So I think as you build your wealth, you have to think about, how are you going to pass it in a tax advantageous way? You got to understand all that, which is the whole thing, but you also have to prepare the next generation to receive it. And you have to, I, as a real estate investor, have bought many homes from real estate investors that passed away, and their kids didn't understand how to handle that property and that stuff. And one of my great fears in life is that I go and build wealth, and then I just give it on to the next real estate investor instead of my family. And so I really focus on those things: how to do the deal, how to find the network that can do the deal, which is super important. You got to have people who know a couple of the pieces. And then how do we put our kids involved in it? The kids work the event. We pay them. They open up their Roth IRAs. We make our kids at 8 years old invest in Roth IRAs. So it's a whole thing.
That's, I was talking to one of my clients the other day, and she's an investor, but she's not an investor like you would think. Like, she owns commercial buildings and she has a very successful business, but she was talking, she was like, I think my kids are a little too young to pay them, but she's like, there is this, she was saying it in another mastermind. She's like, there is this strategy. And I'm like, oh yeah, there is. But she was just a consumer, like a client talking about it. So teaching those things. What, you have some people that are coming from across the country that are was one of them an attorney or tax something? You have specialists coming in to help understand this too, correct?
Yeah. Thanks for asking that. So we have John Heyer and Quincy Long, which for the self-directed, and they're both attorneys. John Heyer is probably the best self-directed IRA tax litigator in the country.
Mhm.
Quincy Long owns Quest Trust Company, which is a trust company, which is a bank out in Texas, and
Mhm.
he is a custodian that manages like $1.6 billion or something like that. And they are, I would consider them two of the top experts in the country in the self-directed IRA genre. And then we
Nice.
also have Ashley Cash coming in. Ashley Cash is an entrepreneur out in Texas. She does a lot of syndication. But she is top notch as well. She's got a lot to teach us about family trust. She's fifth generation Texas. So
Nice.
she's pretty amazing.
What a nice name for that, Ashley
Yeah, I
Cash.
know, right? Ashley Cash is exactly right.
And I know too, you are wanting to know from the real estate community. So we'll kind of leave here. Like, what is it that agents need to know to be educated that you can help put the people together and or yourself teach what agents and real estate professionals, don't know, or maybe we know surface level, but not like the depths that you're talking about in these self-directed IRAs and things like that. So if you guys have questions that you want to dig deeper into this, please contact me. I'll gather the questions for Rich, and Rich can also have that and start teaching on it in his mastermind and at his event and things like that. So that is something I know that you had kind of an aha sitting there at the event the other day of like, oh,
Yeah, I did. I hadn't really thought about that the real estate agents really have a need for what the investors are doing. And there's not always, some synchronicity between the two groups. And I was sitting in that room, and I appreciate you asking me to say a few words. I was happy to do so, but I really saw that there could be a value add there, and that both sides were missing a piece. And
yeah.
so, I would encourage anybody. The Ring group meets like once the second Wednesday of every month. They've been meeting for about 20 years. So it's a long group. It's been around a long time, and it's got a lot of longevity. And, we average 100, 125 people an event. So I would encourage, come get to know the investors. There's a lot that the investors and the agents can work together.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Well, thank you so much for being on this with us and being our surprise guest. It was totally a surprise. And I'm just grateful to have met you and like to actually learn from you too. So everybody, again, this is Rich Lennon, and it's Lennon. You can find him on Facebook. Give him a follow, and give the Richmond Ring Mastermind group a follow too, because there's some really valuable things in there. So thank you so much for being with us, and we'll see you in January.
Thanks, Jenny. I'll see you in January.
Yes,
All right.
thank you. See ya.